The Pine Grove apartment complex was a place of routine. Days were filled with the familiar rhythms of life. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows, a sense of mystery would settle over the complex. It began with whispers, fleeting glimpses of an unknown presence. Residents spoke of a solitary figure, a shadow moving silently amongst the buildings. A stray dog, they assumed, drawn to the warmth of their community. His arrival was subtle, almost unnoticed at first, but as days melted into weeks, a pattern emerged. Each evening as dusk painted the sky, the dog would reappear, moving with an almost spectral grace. Word of the mysterious dog spread quickly through the complex. Some residents, touched by his forlorn appearance, began leaving out food. A chipped ceramic bowl filled with dry kibble appeared near Mrs. Chen's patio. Mr. Rodriguez left a plate of chicken scraps near the communal grill, but the dog, despite his hunger, remained wary. He approached the offerings cautiously, his movements hesitant. If a resident startled him, he would bolt, disappearing into the shadows. Theories abounded, each more outlandish than the last. Despite his timid nature, the residents couldn't help but feel a growing sense of concern for the dog. The residents of Pine Grove, their hearts touched by the dog's plight, resolved to help him. Mrs. Rodriguez took charge, rallying her neighbors for a meeting. Ideas were exchanged, plans debated. Some suggested contacting the local animal shelter. Others advocated for a community-led effort to earn the dog's trust. They would start by establishing a regular feeding schedule. Volunteers would monitor his movements and report any signs of distress. They would work together to devise a plan to capture him safely. The residents, filled with concern and determination, set about their task. They believed every living being deserved a second chance. The residents threw themselves into their mission to help the elusive stray. They established feeding stations at strategic locations. Each morning volunteers replenished the bowls with fresh food and water. But the dog continued to evade their attempts at capture. He appeared only under the cover of darkness, his movements swift and silent. Weeks turned into months, and still the dog remained elusive. Some residents began to question their efforts, but others refused to give up hope, believing the dog was desperate for kindness. Determined to crack the code of the dog's behavior, the residents approached their mission with a newfound sense of organization. Mrs. Rodriguez created a detailed logbook documenting the dog's every movement. Word spread, and soon residents from neighboring communities joined their efforts. A local veterinarian offered advice on how to approach a fearful dog. Despite their best efforts, the dog continued to elude capture. He seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to anticipate their movements. But the residents refused to be deterred. They knew that somewhere beneath that wary exterior beat the heart of a creature deserving of their love. As the weeks turned into months, the mystery of the elusive stray dog deepened. The residents began to weave elaborate theories about his past. Some whispered that he was an escapee from a nearby research facility. Others speculated that he was a survivor of a natural disaster. The dog remained an enigma, moving through their lives like a whisper. Still, they continued their efforts, driven by a shared belief in kindness. They left out food and water, hoping to earn his trust. Slowly, they began to notice subtle changes in his behavior. The residents found themselves at a crossroads. Their compassion remained undiminished, but the dog's avoidance left them frustrated. They knew they had to change their approach. A sense of collective determination swept through the complex. Meetings were held, ideas exchanged, and strategies debated. They studied the logbooks, searching for patterns in the dog's movements. Some residents advocated for setting humane traps, others suggested enlisting the help of professional animal rescue organizations. The residents embarked on a multi-pronged approach. They contacted local animal shelters and rescue organizations. Humane traps were strategically placed near the dog's known haunts. The traps were baited with an assortment of culinary delights. Days turned into nights, each sunrise bringing renewed hope. The traps remained stubbornly empty. Yet, amidst the setbacks, there were glimmers of hope. Residents reported seeing the dog linger a little longer at the feeding stations. As summer surrendered to autumn, a sense of urgency descended upon Pine Grove. The air grew crisp, the nights longer, and the threat of winter loomed large. The residents knew they had to act quickly, but the dog seemed to retreat further into himself. His appearances became less frequent, his movements more furtive. Tensions ran high at the resident meetings. Some residents questioned the wisdom of continuing their efforts. Others remained resolute, believing the dog was desperate for connection. As the days grew shorter and the first snowflakes began to fall, a glimmer of hope emerged. Maria, a young woman who had recently moved into the complex, noticed something unusual. The dog was standing near the dumpster, his attention fixed on something beyond Maria's line of sight. But it wasn't the dog's presence that caught her attention, it was the fact that he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was another dog, a small, scruffy creature with matted fur and haunted eyes. Maria moved closer, her steps slow and deliberate. She noticed a glint of metal around the dog's neck. It was a collar, and attached to it was a small, rectangular tag. Maria stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat. The sight of the collar sent a jolt of surprise through her. The stray they had chased for months bore a mark of belonging. It was a detail so simple it seemed to shift the very air around her. The larger dog turned his head slowly, his dark eyes meeting hers with intensity. He didn't growl or bare his teeth. He simply stood there, his gaze unwavering, inviting her to make the next move. The smaller dog huddled closer to her protector. Maria could see the fear in her wide, pleading eyes. It was clear this was no chance encounter. The larger dog, Shadow, was leading this frightened creature with gentleness. Maria knew she had to proceed with caution. Every story she had heard painted a picture of a dog averse to human contact. Yet, here he stood, his gaze steady, his body language inviting. It was as if he were waiting for something, a silent understanding to pass between them. Maria took a hesitant step forward, her hand outstretched, her palm facing the ground in a gesture of peace. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're here to help." The larger dog watched her every move, his dark eyes tracking her progress. But still, he didn't move. He remained rooted to the spot, his body language controlled. Maria took another step, then another, closing the distance. She could feel the weight of the dog's gaze upon her. As she drew closer, she could make out the details of his face, the network of fine lines etched around his eyes, the scars that hinted at a life lived on the fringes. But it was his eyes that held her captive, deep, soulful pools, a depth of understanding that belied his feral appearance. Maria, her hand trembling, reached out to touch him. Her eyes fell upon the tag dangling from his collar. The inscription was barely visible in the dim light. She squinted, reading the words. "I'm Max," the tag read. The name shattered the illusion. Max, not Shadow, not Phantom, just Max. "I work for the local shelter's outreach program," Maria read aloud, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and awe. "I help find other stray dogs. Please don't catch me. Just call this number if you see me with other dogs." The words hung in the air, a whisper of revelation. Max, not a stray, but a hero, a silent guardian, guiding them towards safety. Maria, filled with admiration, dialed the number. As the phone rang, each tone carried a promise. The line crackled to life. "Hello, this is the city animal shelter." Maria took a deep breath. "Hello," she whispered. "I think I found Max." The voice on the other end of the line, initially hesitant, transformed into a wave of relief and astonishment as Maria recounted her encounter. "You found Max?" the voice exclaimed, disbelief tinging her words. "We've been looking for him for months. He's a bit of a legend around here." Maria, still kneeling before Max, listened as the shelter worker explained the true nature of Max's work. He was no ordinary stray, but a highly trained rescue dog. Max had an uncanny ability to locate lost souls and lead them to safety. The shelter received numerous calls about Max leading other strays. He led them to food stations, ensuring their survival and acclimating them to humans. As Maria listened to the shelter worker's account, awe washed over her. The dog's dark eyes reflected the streetlight, a testament to the bond between humans and animals. He was a silent guardian, a furry angel with a purpose. Max sensed the shift in energy, his tail thumping softly. He nudged her hand, seeking reassurance. Maria, filled with gratitude, relayed the instructions. Max was not to be confined within a shelter. His calling lay in the shadows, amongst the forgotten corners of the city. He was a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience. The residents of Pine Grove, filled with wonder, discovered their efforts played a pivotal role. Maria, her phone call concluded, looked at Max with newfound respect. The dog, his tail wagging gently, sensed her shift in understanding. He was no longer a creature to be feared. He was a partner in their mission to ease suffering. News of Max's true identity spread, transforming frustration into awe. The residents realized their attempts to catch him were misguided. They had failed to grasp the true nature of his mission. He was utilizing their compassion for a greater good. The traps were dismantled, the logbooks repurposed. The residents embraced their roles in Max's operations. The feeding stations became havens for Max's charges. The tale of Max, the stray dog who wasn't a stray at all, became a cherished legend within Pine Grove. It served as a reminder that appearances could be deceiving, and heroism could bloom in unexpected places. Max showed them the true meaning of compassion and love beyond species. Their misguided attempts to capture him now brought smiles to their faces. They had failed to recognize the quiet heroism unfolding before their eyes. Max, the Phantom, continued his work, a reassuring constant in chaos. He slipped in and out of their lives, a furry guardian angel. His missions cloaked in secrecy, his impact immeasurable. The residents of Pine Grove, their hearts forever touched by his story, learned to recognize the subtle signs of his presence. And so, the legacy of Max, the stray who wasn't a stray, lived on, woven into the very fabric of their community.